At Tim Smith Spirits, we've been doing what we love for generations. Even when forced to do it on the wrong side of the law, we've never stopped. It's in our roots, engraved in our soul. It's our family story. Recipes crafted mountain deep, in the light of the moon, shared down by word of mouth, generation to generation. Making booze on the edge of legality, living true to our rebel heart, driven by our defiant spirit, and rooted in our renegade urge to bring the world the real taste and kick. So break the rules a little, let go, and enjoy this moment with a drink of unpredictable and a taste of unexpected. Tim Smith Spirits and Climax Moonshine. Drink defiance.
Proudly made in the USA and inspired by the American lifestyle, Country Smooth Bourbon was developed by the first female founder and CEO of an American bourbon whiskey company as a refined experience to be savored on its own or enjoyed in cocktails. We are dedicated to celebrating the spirit of America and the crafting of premium bourbon whiskey. To learn more, visit countrysmooth.com, where you can order online or find a retailer near you. Cheers. Country Smooth. Female founded, country grounded.
Welcome to the Bourbon Life Podcast, your source for all things bourbon. Join your hosts, Mark and Matt, as they drink and review bourbons, share news about upcoming events, interview the who's who in the bourbon world, and, most importantly, bring you along for the fun of living the bourbon life. Now, here's your hosts, Mark and Matt.
All right, everybody, welcome back for another episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark. With me, as always, live in the Bourbon Life Studios, otherwise known as my basement, is my good friend, Matt. Matt, how you doing, man?
Hey, Mark, I'm doing really well tonight. How are you?
I'm doing great, dude. This is awesome to be in the actual studio and not on a computer, man. This is fun. I love doing this.
That's right. You're having fun and we haven't even started yet. Look at you. You're like,
having fun. And it's dry January.
You're like a kid on his way to the birthday party.
Man,
you are having so much fun. We haven't even got there yet.
Yeah, getting to use the podcast table. I mean, and not only that, Matt, but we also have Chad with us tonight. Chad, man, welcome over tonight.
Yeah, it's nice. I missed the last one, so it's good to be back.
That's right. You missed our New Year's spectacular.
That's right. The bazaar, the New Year's bazaar.
Hey, but the good news is Matt got you some of his nuts. So
he did. I've got some.
You get to enjoy some of Matt's tasty nuts. Okay,
I do.
So yeah, he got lots of good stuff in that bag for you for
Hell
Christmas,
yeah, I do, man. Thank you for all that too. Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome. Well, man, we are of course the Bourbon Life Podcast presented by Tim Smith Spirits. We do want to thank all of our sponsors. And with that said, Matt, you want to tell everybody who we have with us tonight?
Absolutely. We've got a full house tonight. This is, I think, as full as the Bourbon Life Podcast table has ever been.
Yes, it is.
So we have, of course, Chad from My Daily Bourbon joining us, and also the co-founders of the Bluegrass Distillers, Sam Rock and Ben Franzini. Gentlemen, welcome onto the podcast this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, man. We're thrilled to have you guys. It's great to have you here in the Bourbon Life Studios with us live tonight. It's a lot of fun. You guys are here in Lexington with us as well. So this is long overdue, man. This is episode 102 for us. So we should have done it. Sam, you and I have talked about this before, man. We just never got it worked out. So I'm happy we're finally able to put this together and get you guys over here. And just a little tidbit of information. If I know our guest or if I met our guest before, I always like to tell everybody, Sam and I actually went to law school together. So,
way back in the day.
Yeah, man. So Sam and I have actually, we've known each other. Sam you're probably the guest. Yeah, you get the award for the guest that I have actually known the longest. So that goes back, man, it's hard to believe how long it's been. What year did you graduate? Were you 95 or 6?
6.
Okay, you're 2 years behind me. Okay, yeah, 90. Gosh, man, crazy.
But I tell you what, I always remembered you because, there are groups of people in law school.
Yeah.
Somewhat normal, not normal, and normal-ish. And you fell in the normal-ish group. You weren't hiding books or anything sort of weird, So
I guess that's a good thing, right?
That's a good thing.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I'll take that as a compliment.
It's a compliment, yeah.
Well, man, I'm happy to have you guys here with us tonight. So before we jump into the conversation, let's talk about what we've got poured up here for the first round. And this is something for my own personal collection that I had not opened simply because it was one of the first releases that I knew that you guys had done. This was from several years ago. But this is the Kentucky Blue Corn straight bourbon. So you guys, it's your baby, man. If you all want to tell us a little bit about that. That's great. As Sam puts on his readers to see like what is that bottle?
That's how long it's been. Okay, so this is really interesting. This is batch 1, and it has gotten much better.
Okay.
So one thing I like to say is I don't think you're really a good distiller unless you've not made good bourbon at some point.
Gotcha.
But the blue corn is it's a wheated product. It's always been a wheated product. We initially came up with this concoction with the UK School of Chemical Engineering, and so in the beginning, their interns were basically our labor.
Oh, okay.
So they would come over, and we basically put them on a crock pot in a 5-gallon bucket, and we knew in order to like have a long-term horse in the race, we needed to have something a little bit different.
Right.
So we tried white corn, we tried all kinds of different yellow corns, we didn't really try red corn, but we tried flaked corn and just all kinds of different stuff. We tried Indian corns, and the blue corn did have a little bit different of a flavor,
okay,
which we liked as White Dog. We always call it Blue Dog. So it worked there too. But so then we sourced the blue corn initially from Montana. It was incredibly expensive. I can't remember what it was a bushel. It was $12 or $14 a bushel. And the guy that we were sourcing it from at Woodford Feed, I think he actually felt sorry for us. He said, "Look, man, you guys got to grow this locally." So he hooked us up with a farmer. We grew it. So this particular batch is probably from the Montana corn.
Okay. All right.
That we bought, and then we had blue corn that we raised again, and then we raised it again this year, and we'll raise it every year.
Okay.
This year, the yield was about 100 bushels an acre. We're hoping to do like 170 maybe next year.
Okay.
But its yield is lower when you compare it to other mash bills. I think it just has less carbohydrate. It's not like amped up like a GMO corn. But it has even though the mash bill is just like the other wheated bourbon, our mash bill is always 75-21-4. In typically your secondary grain is sort of what drives your taste.
Right.
Blue corn is a lot different than the yellow corn. And I think it's softer. It gets sort of more sweeter and sort of takes on sort of the essence of the barrel quicker. So you'll get a better mouthfeel. You get a smoother finish. I think it's a really great product. And we introduced a bottled in bond blue corn last year, which we think was the first blue corn bottled in bond ever, really.
Oh, okay.
And those are out there somewhere. The new label looks a little bit different than this one. This is sort of the old legacy label, sort of the old school thing. But the new one's a lot different. But so I'm really curious to see what this tastes like. But we would like to probably get to making. We can't do this in our current still, but in the next still, between 500 and 1,000 barrels of blue corn bourbon a year.
Oh, okay. All right.
And it really has really no secondary market value in terms of a barrel. So if we make it, we got to sell it or age it longer.
Only one exit strategy.
There's no exit strategy. You
it.
can't finance it. Nobody wants it but us. And so
very cool. So this is blue corn, but it is a wheated mash bill too, right? Okay, yeah. So that's what I wanted to make sure of. I wasn't sure on this one. And this one, I think on the back it says aged at least 2 years. So I don't know if you know. And Sam, I know this is an older release or not. It was one of your first, I guess. But do you know what the actual blend? I'm assuming this was blended. So do you know what that blend of years is by chance? I'm sure.
You mean in terms of barrels?
Yeah,
it's probably like 4 barrels or something like that.
Okay, gotcha. And they're all at least 2 years, but they could be somewhat a little older than that possibly. So
now everything we put out is probably more like at least 4 years.
Okay.
I mean, I tasted the 4-year one today, and it was, especially on the mouthfeel, it was, it had more silk to the mouthfeel and had more
Gotcha.
vanilla and caramel. This still, and it may have been the way we distilled back then too. So when we distilled back then, we were single distilling.
Uh-huh.
And so we were taking the hearts, we would call it the hearts of heart. So we ran everything through a stripping still.
Okay.
And then we would take the best 5 gallons. Can you imagine what that's like? It's like trying to build stairs to heaven with a bunch of thimbles, you know? So it would take us basically, a week to fill 1 barrel, or 12, 15 days, you know?
Yeah.
So, but I do taste some things in this that it wouldn't be that way now, because now we distill up, we double distill everything. So we have everything from 160 down to 100, and then we barrel at 125. So it's a much more consistent product.
Okay, gotcha. So guys, what are you picking up, Chad, in terms of the nose on this, and what do you get on it?
Get a lot of honey. And like a little bit of a pie crust in there. Blue corn to me always brings out a little bit of nuttiness to it, but it's not like I can never decide what kind of nuttiness. I just pick up some sort of it in there.
Yeah.
But I love how mellow and sweet the blue corn is. So like Sam said, it's very soft, it's delicate. And I really enjoy that.
Matt, what about you, man? What do you get nosing over there?
I pick up a lot of the grain at first. It comes through with a big whiff of the grain, and then it kind of lends its way to the smell of barnwood a little bit. Just I think I'm going back to that grain. It just kind of reminds me of the farm kind of essence of barnwood, and then I get some sweetness, like a marshmallow on it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I see that for sure. The honey I wasn't picking up, but marshmallow, yeah, I can see that. So Sam, Ben, what about you guys nosing this? What do you get?
I've tasted a lot of blue corn, and I always go to toffee. I don't know.
Okay.
I just get that, and maybe it's because I've tasted it so often that I get that on the nose as well.
Gotcha.
See that.
The funny thing for me, I actually I get almost like a leather note on this, and I don't know, Matt, maybe that goes. You're talking about barnwood, the kind of aroma off of that, and maybe that lens, maybe that's the way I'm translating that, but almost like a little bit of a leather type of aroma to it, which is kind of, for a young bourbon, I wouldn't anticipate that, but I'm still kind of getting that nose. Sam, what about you, man?
I mean, I think it's bready. It definitely, to me, smells like it has some wheat bread to it.
Gotcha.
And the blue corn, if we've tasted them right next to the yellow corn, same age, same barrel, same almost exact thing, within a week or 2 apart, right when we switched. And the blue corn does get more mature quicker, so it picks up more of the wood. I don't know why that is. It's darker. It's a lot darker.
Huh.
And it wasn't just that one particular thing. I mean, if you look at them next to each other, kind of that's what they are.
Yeah, one thing Sam mentioned when he was talking about blue corn, it's an heirloom grain, so it's not optimized for volume like GMO'd yellow dent. Mm-hmm. And so I think, we put the same number of bushels, in each mash, and I think you're getting more congeners because it's such a dense. It's not optimized for volume, so you're getting more flavor per kernel potentially, which means more congeners. So that distillate off the still just may be, more concentrated. So, but it does, even a 2-year-old of this to me can compete with a 4-year-old of some yellow dent number 2
Gotcha.
mash bills.
Yep, that makes sense. So guys, let's talk a little bit about how you managed to get into the industry that you're in. Sam, talking about having been in law school together, kind of a neat path. So talk about how you went from law school at UK and ended up starting a distillery.
Well, it was sort of not a very direct trajectory, so to speak, but I started practicing right when I got out of law school. I was a prosecutor for a while, and then I worked for a bigger firm, and then opposite. I worked for a bigger firm, then I was a prosecutor, and then I was out on my own, and I started representing Hispanics for the most part, I worked on my Spanish and got to where that was basically all I did. So immigration law and representing people and spoke Spanish and whatever kind of issues. And then we had a tax business that was sort of an offshoot. We did that for a while. And then I ended up in Atlanta via Alabama and New York. And I worked for this company. And so they moved me around, and for a couple years. And then I ended up in Atlanta and I started dating the person I'm now married to. And I was coming back and forth, and one of the former owners and I, good friends, he wanted to go out and look at these rick houses that are in Woodford County, which is where I grew up.
Okay.
And he was like, are you familiar with those? Which is now Castle and Key.
Okay.
Like, yeah. I used to be all around that place when I was a kid,
Sure.
And skipping rocks and whatever else you'd do out there, right? And so we went out there and looked at it, and they still had all the tanks. It hadn't been purchased by Castle and Key yet. It was still owned by that trust. And we were like, why don't we consider doing this? Because we were in the tax business together, which was absolutely not fun.
Right.
But we wanted to do something that kind of was a little bit more fun.
So you guys were looking at that to actually purchase and
he was looking at it to take the buildings down to use the wood.
Oh, okay.
And it was just kind of a field trip.
I got you.
And then we just started talking about getting into the distillation business. So now that was really early. That was like early 2012 or maybe.
Okay.
So we then talked about, it became real. So like I wanted to come back to Kentucky, but I didn't just want to come back and lawyer.
Yeah. Right.
I wanted to do something in addition and have sort of an exit plan from the billable hour. And so we decided, we went to a couple bourbon schools. The one bourbon school we went to in Colorado, the people got so intoxicated before lunch that we just left. So then we went to the one down at MB Roland. Paul Tomaszewski runs it. It's called, I don't know if he still does it, but he would call it Camp Distillery. He went to West Point. And so basically he showed everybody how to moonshine in 55-gallon drums.
Oh. And
then put it in a barrel, and he basically said, that's how you make bourbon. Essentially, that's what we did. And so we came back and we said, okay, do we want to buy bourbon or do we want to make bourbon? And we decided to make bourbon. And we started trying to figure it out on like a 5-gallon turkey fryer in the back of West 6th.
Really?
In the cold winter with no heat, no plumbing. So we packed that thing up and got it. The one thing that it had is it had a fire suppression system.
Yeah.
Which we knew
which was good.
So yeah. So we didn't even have the still in, we just were using the buckets and we did all kinds of stuff. Like we didn't have a cooker. So we bought a hot water heater that would produce 185 degree water continuously. And so it was all about the gelatinization temperature of corn. So, but as soon as you put the water in, the corn absorbs it and it makes it colder. The gelatinization temperature of corn is like 157.
Okay.
But if you can't do that, you can't break it down and then, use the malt to break it down into simple sugars. So we did that for a long time. And then, one of the original members was talking to Steve Thompson, bless his soul, was a great guy at Kentucky Artisan, and Steve said, "Well, just do it all on the still you have." Well, at this point, the still was on the flame, so I mean, But so we started scooping the dry mash in, and the interns were scooping the dry mash in too. At this point, I was living like 50-50 between here and Atlanta. I would come up and see my wife, and then I'd basically see her. And then I'd go to the distillery and stay there all day, and try to distill. So it would scorch on the bottom, and it would basically smell. When you open the top, it would smell like popcorn with gasoline on it.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Really bizarre. So then we'd have to scrape it off and start all over again. We'd open the hatch, and we had a little wheel on the end of a drill, and we would basically kind of brush off all the caked on corn on, from the bottom. And so we kept going this way for a while. And then we got a little boiler, And I'd like to say is that the boiler, which was for a house that we bought off eBay, was the transition into modern day distilling. So I got all of these boiler guys. The first boiler guys I met, they're still friends of mine. So they come over, we get them off Craigslist. And the one guy says, I'm like, well, who has the boiler license? And he looks at the other guy and he's like, I thought you had the license. You're in the HVAC business. And he's like, no, I don't have a license, but it's not really that important. so we did ultimately move past those guys and onto some other guys. But when we got with these other guys, this boiler came in pieces, like a radiator.
Yeah.
You know, and they were like, when you said you got a boiler, like, you didn't say it was going to come in pieces. You know?
Man.
So they put that thing together. And then we did. And then later that guy, we found a cooker off eBay too, which used to make bread or something. And that guy who was really in the boiler business, he said, look, I've got a pretty big boiler coming out of a Mr. Tuxedo. And so, which is where most steam is used, right?
Yeah, right.
And so he hooked that thing up. And, you know, at that point, basically, we've been really kind of cooking with gas, so to speak, since. And then we've just, you know, have really been, we were basically kind of like just kind of slowly plodding along.
Right.
Since 2013 and trying to get older spirits and selling out of the tasting room and selling into distribution until hand sanitizer sort of like changed our whole thing.
Did it? Okay.
I mean, we can get into that if you want to. But
yeah, well, we can talk about that next when we talk more about the distillery. That'd probably be good. Yeah, we can do that. So very kind of a roundabout way to get into the industry, but it is funny that Castle and Key ended up being bought by another attorney.
Yeah.
How funny is that, right? So these attorneys are all in the business, man. Ben, what about you? How'd you get into this?
Well, so yeah, I joined after the crock pot phase, as Sam mentioned. I didn't realize this.
Luckily.
You were in the Mr. Tuxedo phase.
Exactly, yeah. I benefited from Mr. Tuxedo. But yeah, I joined about 2 years ago at this point, right before sort of the sanitizer phase, which we can talk about. But I was trained as an engineer, and interestingly, I was thinking in the past week. So my first job out of college was I basically got a job as a risk analyst for working for a company that did analysis for NASA and aerospace programs. And one thing that I've realized is a common thread, even though it's very different, is there are a few industries that you model or plan 10 years out into the future. You know, most businesses, maybe 1 year plan, 3 year plan, 5 year plan, if you're really on your, on game. Right. But the first job I got was literally doing modeling and simulation for aerospace programs that were like 10 to 15 years. And so it's funny, the past 6 months, we've been trying to sort of, in the process of planning our next phase of the distillery, putting together plans that are decade-long plans, because, to put spirit in a barrel and then have the business model to carry it until it's ready to sell, you basically have to put a pro forma together that looks at that, that timeline and thinks about cost and production and sales and all those things. And so anyway, I was trained as an engineer. I did some modeling and simulation type work early in my career. Lately, I've been doing more information security stuff at a software company. So again, to Sam's point about the law, you bring that up at a dinner party, it kills conversation pretty quickly. So when I met Sam and he was just getting started on the distillery, and I was just always fascinated. I mean, I'd always loved bourbon, and I've always been inspired by Sam's entrepreneurial style, I'll say, which is, as he just demonstrated, very industrial / he figures out how to get stuff done on a budget, which is one of the biggest inhibitors to getting into the bourbon game. So anyway, so I came to the distillery as an inspired engineering entrepreneur, and when I joined the team, I've been in love with it ever since. So
very nice. Yeah, that's awesome, man. So you've been with them for a couple of years now, then?
Yeah, a couple of years.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. I don't know if we want to segue into the hand sanitizer thing, but when I joined, it was literally the day I think the distillery got shut down by the governor because of COVID.
Oh, man.
So, we were all amped up, and then I was ready to get on board, and that was the day the tasting room got shut down, which was a little demoralizing at the time.
Sure. Yeah. That's like us with our podcast. We started in February, and then it was like we had these grandiose ideas to travel to all these distilleries across the state. And then like 3 weeks later, it's like, oh shit, everything's closed down.
Yeah,
It's like,
but it's honestly been the best mistake,
Yes,
the most unfortunate
it has been. I agree. Because
happening.
we have been able to.
It's turned well for us.
Yeah, we've been able to connect with people through the. Fortunately, we can do our job virtually. With a distillery, you can't really do that. But it worked out to our advantage. But yeah, man, I can't imagine coming on board and being like, yeah, we're going to shut down for a little while. Sorry about that.
So it was a little scary, but
yeah, I'm sure, man. Well, I'll tell you what, we're at the end of round one. So let's just take a break. We can come back. We'll talk some hand sanitizer and some other things, talk about the distillery a little bit more. And we'll talk about the palate on this blue corn as well. So everybody sit tight. We'll be back with more after we get a word from our sponsors. We'll be back with more with Sam and Ben from Bluegrass Distillers in just a minute. Located just east of Lake Tahoe and the Sierra Nevada mountains, Frey Ranch Distillery was founded by fifth-generation Nevada farmers. Our grain-to-glass bourbon is made using a 4-grain mash bill, including a non-GMO corn, rye, wheat, and barley, all of which is 100% sustainably grown on the 1,500-acre Frey Ranch. And our commitment to excellence shows with a recent gold medal win at the 2020 Whiskeys of the World and USA Spirits competitions. Find out more at www.freyranch.com.
Three Chords line of whiskeys embody the spirit of creativity. The whiskey is a true collaboration between producer and composer Neil Giraldo and master blender distiller Ari Sussman. The Three Chord team of expert blenders, coopers, and sensory professionals have developed a multi-step process they call Perfectly Tuned Taste. This process begins by carefully selecting the finest bourbon and rye whiskeys from Kentucky, Tennessee, and Indiana, and then blending them together. Find out more about the whiskeys and distribution in your area at www.threechordbourbon.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back for round session, period number 2, whatever you want to call it, of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark. With me, again, is my good friend, my buddy, my bourbon. Well, we're not drinking this month, but my good friend, Matt. Matt, how you doing over there, man?
Oh, Mark, I'm doing great. I love how you just have to refer to me with just good friend because we're not actually drinking buddies.
We're not drinking buddies anymore right now, man.
No, not right now.
That sucks. And we got Chad with us too, man. So
Yeah,
right, yeah.
I do. And Chad.
and
Yeah.
Chad's drinking. So
I am drinking. I am the drinking buddy.
You got to make up for lost ground from last month, man. Not being
Hell
here
yeah,
with us,
dude.
because that almost turned into a train wreck last month.
Yeah, you missed a real humdinger of a show.
Man, it was rough. Talk
It
about
sounded
train-
fun. I can say that.
I tell you what, man. It got to a point toward the end. It was like,
It was a hoot.
oh, we actually had we blinded each other. So the three of us and Philip, who's not here tonight, he brought a bottle of Hooters American whiskey, which none of us had ever had before.
Interesting.
And we're trying to guess what it is, and we're all like, what? He's got this, and we're tasting and coming up with all these ideas and answers, and he's just dying laughing, and he reaches in the bag and pulls out this bottle of Hooters American whiskey. It's like, oh man, he got us pretty good on that one.
It was awesome.
That was fun, yeah. But it kind of went downhill after that, man. So little drinking. So Matt, you want to tell everybody who we have with us tonight, man?
That's right. Enough about us. Let's get back to the guests here. We've got Sam Rock and Ben Franzini, the co-founders of the Bluegrass Distillers here in Lexington, Kentucky. So some hometown boys for once.
Yeah,
right?
man. Yeah.
We don't, not too many in Lexington.
No. I mean, there's
We had Barry on.
Barry Brenniger has been on.
already one, or
Yeah.
William Tarr. But yeah, this is just our second time. So guys, welcome back. Round 2.
thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank
Glad to
you.
be here.
I like Matt. Matt gave your last name a little different pronunciation.
Yeah, it had a little flair to it. I like that.
Franzini.
French rather than
Franzini.
Italian.
Yeah,
Franzini.
Franzini. Italian French. Franzini. Yeah, I like that, man.
Delicioso.
Yeah. So guys,
Gorlami.
welcome back, man, to the podcast. Glad you guys stuck around with us here in the Bourbon Life Studios, otherwise known as my basement.
It's a beautiful basement.
Comfortable down here.
Thanks, man.
I could
like
live
it.
down
There
here
are no
for
children down
days.
here.
There's no kids, man.
Yeah.
There's no toys. I know it's all grown up stuff, man. So
I know I had to put my toys away after our last podcast. So I didn't leave any out.
Poor Matt. I put him in front of the fireplace. He used to sit over there to record over there.
Next to the world's draftiest window.
The world's draftiest doors. My wife's office. That's her desk over there. So Matt would sit over there when we did our online recording. So I moved him over to this table in front of the fireplace. So now every week Matt gets to sit over there and turn the fireplace on and keeps getting toasty. Nice. down here in the basement. So guys, we talked a little bit about who you guys are and how you got into the business. So let's talk about the distillery. Sam, you were kind of talking a little bit about the experimental format. I mean, the way that you guys really got started. So that kind of is kind of in your DNA, I guess, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, so, when people are like, when we go to the new distillery, it's a massive change in scale.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the still that we have spec can do about up to 44,000 barrels a year.
Oh,
so it's
okay.
15,000 each fermenter's 15,000 gallons. Currently, we ferment a 500-gallon one.
Wow.
So I mean, and people are like, "Do you think you can do this?" It's like, I started on a 5-gallon bucket. That scale is actually smaller than going from 5 gallons to 500 gallons. I mean,
Yeah, there you go, man.
I mean, to me, it's like, sure, I've already done that.
That's awesome, though.
We've done it over 1,000 times. So
Yeah.
I mean, it seems, pretty rudimentary at this point. We've got a good team. Everybody knows what they're doing. And we can probably not even hardly change. We only probably have to add to the number of distillers we have.
Yeah, well, that's
because
good.
we're basically working really hard to work 2.5 shifts a day to produce 24 barrels a month.
Gotcha.
And so, they'll work the same amount of time and they won't have to load the 50-pound bags, which they'll love. But yeah, we, even in the design of distilleries, when we talk to the consultants, they're like, "Oh, we can do this." Like, no, you don't have to do all that stuff. Come in here and see how we Frankenstein it together. And we need like some specific things.
Yeah.
I think like a lawyer, like, where's the exposure?
Right.
Like, okay, fire, pumps,
Right.
electrical, slopes, so, then it's just a matter of like taking what we've done and moving it to a different scale.
Right.
And like Ben said, thinking like 10 years down the future, or at least 10 years. So, I mean, we want to be thinking in terms of product that we're releasing in 10 years and older bourbons. And to me, that's, one of the most important parts of the industry is thinking how you're going to get to that next level of bourbon.
Yeah. So now, Ben, when you came in, it seemed like you may not get to that next level because the governor was like, we're shutting everybody down. No more in-person whatever. So you guys switched over. You're doing some hand sanitizer. How did that work out?
Well, it was a lot of learning in a very short period of time. I remember specifically the first night we compounded our first batch of hand sanitizer, and Sam had the jumper cables, connected to his body, because one of the big concerns with ethanol at that proof is, sparks, like making sure you're grounded. You don't want any discharge of static electricity under those conditions. So it was.
You don't show those pictures to your spouse. You have a 2.5-year-old.
Yeah. You didn't want to bring that up in your insurance policy re-up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was, within a week of the FDA coming out with the waiver that allowed distilleries to make hand sanitizer, we were doing it out of necessity to just try to not lay off any employees.
Sure.
So it really was a necessity thing, but we had all the skill sets. It was really a proofing thing, and we had to move to a larger facility to just accommodate the scale of sort of the materials we needed. But it really was a growing experience for our team. I mean, we, just from a logistics perspective, especially.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was, the first 4 months that I was a member, we basically only made hand sanitizer.
That's crazy, man. I mean, that's great you guys did that, though. And you guys are downtown in Lexington, just so people understand, because we didn't talk about that really, but you guys are in the building that's, if people are familiar with the West 6 Brewery, you guys are down there on West 6. You're in the back side of that building. And that's where you guys started. That's where you still are at this point. We'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. But you guys have been in that building since you started. So what's it like, running a distillery in a building in downtown Lexington, Kentucky?
definitely constrained, space constrained. Yeah, we were there today giving a tour to some guys, and we've got, our own products. We're doing some secondary aging products. We have source products coming in. We have a lot of barrels, and it's really like a jigsaw puzzle in there to make sure we're keeping everything in the bonded warehouse, which is essentially a room the size 20 by 20. But we're getting it done. I mean, it's just a continuous space optimization problem because we only have so much space, and we're always trying to figure out, okay, what can we send down to Wilderness, which is where we lease rickhouse space.
Okay.
But we're getting the job done, and we got the team to get the job done.
Good.
So,
well, I was going to ask you that too, in terms of your barrels, because I know you don't. How much space you got? Like 4,000 square feet or something down there? Is it that big?
Yeah, it's about 2,700, 3,000.
Okay, all right. So it was a little. I gave you. I overestimated just a ton.
I mean, when you're in that little space, it just doesn't even hardly matter. 500 of that is a bathroom. So
Yeah. Okay. There you go. Yeah.
yeah, we oversized the bathroom for sure.
it is a nice bathroom.
That could have been the conference room, actually. But no.
So you guys do send barrels off site then. So you're using the rick houses down at Wilderness Trail down in Danville, right? Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, they're building new rick houses like every week, aren't they? It's insane when you drive past there. It's like, oh, like there's another rick house going up for 50,000 barrels or whatever, man. It's just kind of insane. Guys, let's jump back real quick and talk about the first one that we had poured up, that blue corn wheated bourbon. So let's talk about the palate on that, guys. Chad, I'm going to come back to you, man, since I started with you first on the nose. What do you get on it?
Well, this is my second pour of it.
And I have to say, we invited Chad to join us because Chad is a big fan of Bluegrass Distillers. I know he loves you guys, and I'm not to mean that we don't, but I mean I just know that Chad really loves your products, and he always talks about you guys, and he posts about you guys on Instagram a lot. So I thought it would be cool since Chad does a lot of stuff with us and does reviews for us and whatnot. I thought it'd be fun to have him.
Absolutely. Chad's a VIP to us.
Yeah. There you go.
We appreciate all your support.
If I could have a second home, I would call it there.
Oh, right. You can stay in that bathroom.
There you go. Say, man. Oh, yeah, man. You got a 500 square foot bathroom you can live in, man.
I'll take it, man. It is a nice bathroom.
It is very nice.
So what do you get, Chad? What are you tasting on this one as you take another drink?
As I take another drink.
Yeah.
At first, it was very soft, sweet. I'm getting the wheat grain was coming through, but now that I'm on my second pour and I've had more of it, I'm getting a little bit of breadiness and cinnamon. Still getting I'm getting honey on the palate. I know you guys said you didn't get honey, but I'm getting like a sweetness, which I attribute to. I mean, honey. It just tastes like some kind of clover honey in there.
Okay.
But very mild, sweet, and I mean, I absolutely just love. I was texting Key the other night whenever I had a bottle of blue corn. Just cracked another one, and just it's crazy to me to see how like this is batch one. I've never had batch one before.
Well, happy I could accommodate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like most of what I have are all single barrels. So I besides the Bottle and Bond, I don't think I've ever had a batch product from them. So yeah, I'm very, very surprised by this to have batch one. It's kind of crazy to me. As I don't want to say I'm a super fan, but I just absolutely love you guys, love what you do, just how different it is. But yeah, it's really cool to see where this started and how it's grown to where it is today.
So what you're saying is I should not have cracked that bottle tonight. I should have kept it forever.
I probably wouldn't have known.
We've got one for you. We've got another one for you.
It's all right, man. I'm happy to do it. Matt, what about you, dude? What do you pick up on the palate on this one?
I think that the honey that Chad was talking about is coming across more.
Okay.
I think on the palate with this, the wheat really shines with it. You get that honey wheat, that sweet wheat bread, and I'm getting like a proofing bread as it sits in a proofer before you bake it, and the yeast and everything is interacting. I'm getting that sort of the aroma and the flavor on the bread is coming through that way. There is a little bit of cinnamon, like Chad was saying too, and I know there's not any rye in it, but there's like something a little herbal. I pick up like some taste of some earthy, like I don't want to say mint, but like there's something in there, something a little herbal.
Man, the cinnamon is just, to me, is what just like jumps out at me on the palate. It's like, wow, here you are, and this is 90 proof. To me, this drink's higher than 90 proof. I don't know if you guys. Maybe it's just
no.
me.
Wait, this is 118.
No, we were still drinking that blue corn.
Sam's thinking.
This is the
5
blue
pours
corn.
ahead.
Yeah, so this is just a 118. Blue corn.
Okay.
Oh, you guys are still in the 90%.
Yeah, we're
one ahead of you.
We haven't jumped that. We poured up the second one in anticipation.
I like your style.
Man.
Okay.
I'm drinking the second.
We too are looking down the road. 10 minutes.
10 minutes
but
as opposed to 10 years.
One
Right.
pour
Yeah,
per.
I'm sorry.
You nose for one glass. You taste for one glass. You finish for one glass.
Oh, man.
I like your style.
Sorry about that. No, we just we're still working on that first pour. We just did nose on it since we're splitting two over the 3 segments. So yeah, but cinnamon, and this drink's higher than, because it's 90 proof. But to me, it drinks a little higher than 90 proof. But I like it. It does have a little bit of, to me, it has a little bit of a tannic finish on it. Mm-hmm. You guys, a little drying effect on there, which I know Chad.
Yeah, I was gonna say it doesn't bother me one bit.
It doesn't bother me. It's just different for me because that's not the. I don't want to say I'm not a fan of it. It's just that the tannic effect is not something that I usually look for in a bourbon. But I know it's a prevalent tasting note for a lot of people. But I know Chad
love it.
Absolutely loves that tannic finish, man. So Sam, Ben, what about you guys? What do you get in terms of your palate and your finish on this? So on the first one, Sam, the 90 proofer.
Well, so the first one, I think that the nose really improved, and now I can smell a little bit of coffee on it.
Okay.
Which I really like. And the blue corn, you're right, it does not have any rye in it. But one of the sort of effects is sort of like a clove kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it does have a more earthy element rather than just like, for example, the wheated bourbon is just sweet straight through. Mm-hmm. It's I'm not going to say it's not a complex bourbon, but the blue corn is just a little bit more complicated.
Gotcha.
And you can taste a little bit more. I mean, sometimes I get ginger in it. In this particular one, I get more of the clove, and then with the nose now, like this coffee smell.
Very nice.
Yeah, it and I usually associate the tannic taste to rye bourbons. But this one does have a little bit of that too.
Yeah. Ben, what about you? What do you pick up?
Yeah, as I said, I always get a little toffee out of it, but I also get a nice nutty note on this one.
And that's what, Chad, you talked about blue corn. Mm-hmm. You get a nuttiness.
Yeah, so it kind of almost hazelnut, but not quite.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That makes sense. All right. So, yeah, I mean, that was really good. I'm happy I finally got to open that because I tasted it down at the distillery, but I got the bottle. I was like, oh, I'm just going to keep that, and most of my bottles are open, but that was one of the bottles I was like, nope, I'm just going to save that one because I knew that was your batch one. So, but this is a good occasion bourbon's meant to be drank, right?
That's right.
Right.
So this is the perfect occasion to get to do that. So guys, let's talk about your setup now. So we talked about the experimentation, how you got started and everything, the transition you went through for the hand sanitizer. Now, Sam, I think you said something about like you kind of learned something from that hand sanitizer that really has driven you guys in not in a different direction. But can you talk about what you're meaning there?
So what we did in hand sanitizer is we basically, and Ben talked about the logistics, but so I'll just kind of take you through how we got there. So in the very beginning, everything was shut down. We told the employees we're going to try to figure this out, which is basically what we tell them every day. And also, this is like, just look at yourselves as cosmonauts. You're in space with basically one tool on a rickety old machine that barely works. But your job is stay all day and get it done. And it's supposed to be good. We got to get back to Earth.
Our pot still does sort of look like Sputnik, actually. Okay. So that's a good metaphor.
So, we just kind of try to hammer it out. But so I remember ordering 4,000 of those, like that you squirt the gel in your mouth with.
Yeah.
So that's what we were using as hand sanitizer things at first. So I ordered 4,000 of those on the internet on eBay. So they come in, and then we built the hand sanitizer thing out of just some valves from Home Depot. And then we were listening to this podcast about actually Shane Baker from Wilderness.
Oh, yeah.
The KDA was putting on all these things. So we were putting on all these. And the KDA, all the craft distillers were really behind it. The governor really wanted the distilleries to produce hand sanitizer, be good for Kentucky. So everybody was fired up about it. Shane gets on this conversation. He's like, okay, he starts talking about this stuff. And if it bonds and arcs and, it could cause an explosion, somebody was like, whoa, wait a minute. What are you talking about? Because everybody's used to dealing with stuff that's not over 135 proof.
Right.
not high hazard stuff. So when you Google like why do plants blow up, one of the reasons is like powder and dust and arcing. So like blow up to like nothing. So it really made us really nervous. So the way you
freaked out, basically very freaked out for a little while,
is you attach things together and make sure that you are not a way that something can arc and there's no swinging metal. So we were using jumper cables. So like we would have a wristband, jumper cables, and we would attach the totes together. And then we would connect to the pump, and like so the whole industry was kind of like learning this on the fly, and they were really long days. Sometimes like 16, 18-hour day.
Oh man.
And also like I went and sold a bunch of stock so we could keep our employees and what I had to sell, and like put it back in, and we started buying sanitizer and stuff and equipment, and then we immediately got with the Lexington rescue mission and hired a bunch of day workers, and we would give them speeches in the morning and say like, and this is true, this is how I felt, you guys, what you all are doing is really important. You may be saving somebody's lives. This could go on kids' hands,
right?
And it was awesome. I mean, every part about it was awesome. And one day I was joking because we were buying totes, 275 gallons of basically pure grain, and I said, man, maybe we'll just get a tanker one day. And like a week later, I was like, how much is a tanker? So I'm calling around these different places, and I was like, how much is your tanker? And but also there was a lot of the FDA. I mean, it was the Wild West, but the FDA was really trying to do as much as they could and as little as they could to make it be a legitimate product. So they put out a formula, and Ben and I would hawk the formula, and they would put out these, sort of APBs all the time. And one of them was that the producers, and, mainly these were fuel ethanol plants, had to get this certificate. So we were hawking the ones that would have the certificates, and then we would try to help the other ones that didn't have a certificate. Like, this is the certificate you need. So in that experience, we got to be much better at, acquiring materials, basic materials, compounding those materials, and then also working with other entities to like help them achieve. And so we've kind of taken that into what is the current day of Bluegrass Distillers, which is working with a lot more people,
right?
Continuing to innovate, but also working with other people who are putting NDPs out into the system and bottling for them and helping them with their bottles, and sort of like specializing in small releases. But it's just so much fun to help these people. Like, they'll come in and they'll be like, I bought all these barrels, and then, they'll bring them in, we'll bottle them for them, and it's like a wedding, So I mean,
right. It's a big deal. It's a
big deal, and we know it's a big deal for them. So and they're kind of like part of the family too. So like these people we bottle for, and so I really think just the experience of like continuing to work throughout that whole time period, trying to keep people motivated, managing the cost of like moving money really quickly,
right? Sure.
Buying tankers, buying bottles, and so now we source product, and I don't think we would have gotten to that point, which wouldn't have given us sort of the revenue to continue to carry on and keep employees, and sort of like appreciate that you can really make a great product even though your hands aren't the only hands in it,
right?
Which is something that I would have never grasped. I mean, in this context, in the bourbon context.
That makes sense. I mean, that's really cool too, man. You guys were able to jump in and do that and help out, but then also you learned from that, and you can apply that into what you're doing still today in terms of the bourbon production. Talking about products and things, you mentioned earlier that when you started with the blue corn, you were sourcing from Montana. Was that right? Mm-hmm. Now you're having someone grow your corn for you here pretty much locally. Is that correct? Okay. Yep. Now your other products and stuff like the wheat, I mean, that's all coming from other locations, or is
it's all from, we get it all from Woodford Feed basically.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, Woodford Feed.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Great, man.
Except malted barley, we get that out of Louisville, which is the same place that, I mean, typically that place, I called the guy, and it's called Malt Europe. And he said, well, I said, I've never heard of you, because like we usually use Breeze and they were 50-pound bags. And he goes, well, obviously, I've never heard of you either. And, I said, well, who do you sell to? And he goes, Wild Turkey, Jim Beam. And I was like, well, how do you usually sell? And he goes, well, typically by like the tractor trailer load or, and so we go up with a tote that has the cop. Basically the tote is the main vessel for our. That's
the life raft for all.
Yeah, so we get the top out of that, we take it up, and they just like open the chute and
just fill your tote.
Covers the dust. But they think it's funny,
Oh,
and
man.
And it's great. And they would give us terms, They're like, you can pay in 30 days. I'm like, really? Nobody does that.
Okay. Net 30, I'll take it.
And that was the other thing. In sanitizer, we got used to asking for terms.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, we were never doing that before. Like, hey, can we get 30 days?
Nice, man.
And,
so obviously the learning experience, but that's great you guys are doing that, man, that you got people you can get your products from and get your corn here locally as well. That's really cool. So, guys, let's talk about what we poured up for round 2 here. We've got this is a single barrel. This is the blue corn wheated. Well, it's wheated, but it's also the blue corn, but this is a single barrel. This is 118 proof. And this one was, Matt, did we buy this? Is this the one we went together? Did we pull this out of the barrel?
I think that may have been true.
Yeah, I think it was. I think you guys had the barrel set up, and I think we
got both of those bottles that day. Is that right? Or maybe you got the blue corn like a day or two before
itself. Yeah, but
that one was like a fill your own.
Yeah. So this is, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same thing, right? So you can talk about that though, if you want to.
You want to talk about the barrel fill experience?
So the barrel fill experience was we don't do it anymore because of COVID, but basically we had some barrels on a rack, and then you could fill your own bottle, and people loved it.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like when you go to Disney World, you get the mouse ears. I mean, they would come over, and what I thought was cool about it is as you got further and further down into the barrel, the product would get thicker and thicker and sweeter, and then you'd have a little bit more char in every bottle.
Gotcha.
So it was like, as you got to like bottle 170 or something, it started getting really dark, and that was sort of like the nectar. The bottom of the barrel to me means something totally different. It's the best.
It's the good stuff.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, this was bottle 16, so I don't know if that means this was but there are some floaters in the bottom.
Interestingly, also as you get to the end of the barrel in this barrel fill program, those latter bottles, you actually get a lot more char. And we were worried initially about it, but then we realized people love that.
Oh yeah,
they're like, look at my bottle! I got so much char in there.
Yeah, it's like Goldschlager. It's
exactly.
It's the bourbon version of Goldschlager, man. It's like, yes, I got my char chunks. This is awesome.
Or like one of those little things you get it, when it has the snow in there.
Yeah, like a snow globe. You shake it up and let it go, man. All right, guys. So Matt, I'm going to start with you on this one. What are you picking up on the nose?
So when we first poured it out, I got a pretty good whiff of alcohol coming off, but as it's sat around and we've been sitting here jawing through this round, it's really, really mellowed out in that regard.
Yeah.
Doesn't at all smell like 118.
No.
There's like no burn once you let it sit out, and it's really, really coming across as quite sweet. That honey, the wheat is coming across. I get like a real nice aroma of graham cracker.
Yeah.
Is like kind of the predominant flavor that it's taking on for me. And I wanted to share just a quick story here. You got me, Sam, you got me thinking, as you were talking about like static electricity, creating workplace hazards and things like that. I worked in a factory, an oil refinery for a little bit, and we were working on a tank that had a steam leak on it. So it was shooting steam out through a steam tracer. And we didn't know at the time, but it was shooting it across a ladder on the side of the tank that we had to climb up to get to the top of it. And so we're like climbing up, and we get to the top, and everyone's like, "Did you feel that?" And we're like, "Yeah, like my hands are kind of tingling a little bit." Like, didn't think anything of it. And like, go about our business, and we come back down, and like as we get closer, we're like, "God, did you feel that?" Like we didn't know, but the steam as it was being shot across this ladder was creating static. We were getting shocked as we were climbing up and down this ladder. Like nobody knew it. And of course, this was an oil refinery, so as soon as we told anyone, it was like, everything stops.
Sound the alarm.
Whole thing gets shut down.
Oh man.
But like we didn't know what was going on at the time. We're climbing up this ladder, like are your hands like tingling as you're going along? What's the deal with
I love my job. It's so exciting and tingly.
Yeah. That made me think of that.
Yeah. Oh man, the static electricity loved that. Shooting from one place to the other, high velocity, and then hitting metal. Didn't get any better than that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, all day.
No doubt. Well,
Luckily
Matt,
it didn't spark. Glad
we're
you're
lucky.
here.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're lucky you're still here with us, man.
Yeah, that's right.
And lucky, was that back over in Eastern Kentucky?
That was not in Eastern Kentucky.
Okay,
that was at a different facility.
You didn't blow up my hometown, so I'm happy to hear that too.
No, didn't blow it up.
Chad, what about you, man? What are you picking up in terms of the nose on this one?
I get a lot of butterscotch and like brown butter on the nose. I get the graham cracker that Matt's talking about, but no, it doesn't drink like 118. Right at the beginning, as soon as I poured it out, I went nose in for whatever reason, like almost eating the glass. I could feel it in my eyes because I took such a big whiff, but then 5 minutes later, the ethanol really cooled off.
Yeah.
Super sweet on the nose. I love how sweet it is.
Yeah. Guys, Sam, Ben, what about you guys?
Yeah, I get a lot of sweetness on the nose. I agree with the graham cracker, the honey, and it's really nice.
It's going to be a golden day.
Oh, yeah.
Golden grams, man, in your glass. It's awesome. Sam, what about you, man? He's over there tasting it. No, we're not to that point yet, Sam.
Sorry.
So hard to resist.
I really like the nose in this one, too. I mean, I think it, like a good wheated bourbon, you can taste, it's kind of like wheat bread. You can taste whatever's on it. What is on a wheat bourbon is the barrel.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you can really smell the breakdown of lignin into vanilla. So and I like high proof products, too.
Yeah.
And so I like when you can smell something when you're smelling something that's 120 proof-ish.
Right. Not just, you don't get burned out from alcohol. You get actual aromas and flavors and whatnot. So, but this is the same mash bill, right? As the, okay. So everything's, So it's the 75 blue corn, 21% wheat, 4% malted barley, but we bumped it up from 90 to 100 proof on this one. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, guys, I mean, I'm looking at the timer here and I'm thinking we're probably at the end of round 2 here. So probably a good place just to take a break since we got through the nose on this pour. We can come back and talk about the finish and the palate, and we can talk about some other exciting things that are going on with you guys as well. So everybody sit tight. We'll be back in just a minute after we get a word from our sponsors with Sam and Ben from Bluegrass Distillers in just a minute. Spirits of French Lick crafts their spirits using only the finest agricultural product that has defined character, following their motto, respect the grain. They lead the way in representing the quality of the Hoosier artisan distilling process while paying tribute to its inseparable past. By implementing best practices from those early times, combined with modern touches, Spirits of French Lick has created a truly unique place in the industry. Spirits of French Lick products are distributed throughout Indiana, Kentucky, and Missouri, and can also be purchased online through Sealbox at sealbox.com. Visit spiritsofFrenchlick.com to learn more information and make sure to follow them on Facebook and Instagram.
The Stave Restaurant is a bourbon lover's paradise right here in the heart of bourbon country. Located at 5711 McCracken Pike in Millville, Kentucky, between Castle and Key and Woodford Reserve, Chef Kyle Klatka prepares amazing food each day that features an elevated Kentucky-inspired cuisine. With a full-service bar, great bourbon flights, and signature cocktails, the Stave is the perfect place to catch up with friends after a fun-filled day of touring the local distilleries. Be sure to check them out online at thestavekentucky.com or at Instagram and Facebook at The Stave Kentucky.
All right, everybody, welcome back for the third and final segment, session, round, period, act, scene, whatever you want to call it, of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, live in the Bourbon Life Studios, otherwise known as my basement, with my good friend, my non-bourbon drinking buddy, wearing his beanie tonight, but not sitting in front of the fireplace because we were around the beautiful, what'd you call it, Matt? The flights of, what is it? What's the table? The flights of the...
Oh, the flights of the round.
Yeah, flights of the round, even though it's not... Yeah, anyway. Matt, how you doing tonight, man?
Mark, I'm doing great. I cannot tell you how good it is to have live guests again.
It is, isn't it fun? Yeah. I love it, man. This is great.
As good as it's been to be able to connect with people all over the U.S. in this, it's just nice to sit down and have conversations with people and not have to worry about technologying out.
Yeah, and that was fun, because this was our plan. We talked about that off air earlier, but this was our plan originally when we started this 2 year, almost, man, it'll be 2 years the first week of February, man. So, but that was the plan, to go to the distilleries or meet people and hang out live in person. Of course, COVID changed that, which actually worked to our advantage because it opened up the opportunity for us to talk with a lot more people, which has been great. But man, I agree, Matt. There's nothing like having people sitting down face to face and getting to talk to them and hang out and drink together. I think some of our best shows have just been the ones that we get to do this. So it's great to be able to do this with you guys. Chad, we're happy to have you with us, man, making up for lost time.
Yeah, man. Happy to be here. Just happy to be around people who I don't work with.
I hope all your employees are listening to this show and they go like next week, like, what the?
I love my employees, but
you're just kind of tired of dealing with them, right?
Yeah, it's nice to see people who I
get it, man.
Who I don't look at for 10 hours a day.
I feel the same way. So, because I know none of my coworkers listen to my podcast. All right, Matt, you want to tell everybody who we have with us, man?
I'd love to. We have Sam Rock and Ben Franzini, the co-founders of Bluegrass Distillers, here in Lexington, and they are back for round number 3, the final exciting conclusion tonight.
Thanks for sticking around, guys. We appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.
I was afraid, Ben, when you went upstairs to get some more water.
We've got bourbon here.
But Ben went upstairs to get more water, and I was listening for the door. I'm like, nope, he stayed. That's
That's why you keep the bourbon downstairs.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
You can leave if you want, but you're just leaving all of this behind.
Yeah, it's a hodgepodge of bottles down here, guys. There is no rhyme or reason. It's just as it has expanded, I've had to find places to put it.
I was curious if there was like a Dewey Decimal equivalent down there.
There's not, man.
You got the grand piano section. It's beautiful.
Well, I feel bad because, I was telling earlier about the house that we bought it from some friends of ours. And when they moved, they left the piano because they didn't have a place for it. So we're like, yeah, fine, just leave it. We'll take care of it. I put 1 bottle on it. I put 2 bottles. Now there's like
it's a good bourbon shelf.
Yeah, it's like 150 bottles on top of this baby grand piano. Now it's like it'll be okay. It's an old piano, It's not gonna hurt it.
It'll suck if you need to get it tuned, though.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen. I do have plans to put shelves all the way down this wall section right here.
Hey, enough about us, though.
Anyway,
right? We've got great guests on
we
the
do,
show.
man. I'm sorry.
I was kind of getting into this, though.
Yeah, it's fine.
I like this shelf idea. I did think you were playing the piano. I was going to ask you about that later, so you ruined that. But I do love this shelf idea.
I do, man. Right over there, those boxes. Those are the iron, the pipes. I've got the pipes to build the whole segments, and I've got the board, the lumber, actually from Old World Timbers out on the back deck. Big, thick, long, 15-foot boards.
Awesome.
To put up there. So eventually that's the plan, to have everything in one location, one centralized place, where I don't have to dig and be like, I know I've got a bottle of that somewhere, and try to remember where it is. So, all right, Matt, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
No, what?
All right, guys. So, we talked a little bit about the distillery. One thing I wanted to ask you guys about, though, is that you have a pot still, right? So you guys are distilling on a pot right now. Can you talk about that? I mean, how that works and why you do that, or why you chose to do that?
Well, we could afford it.
It was initially on eBay.
Yeah.
They won the auction. That's why.
They won the auction.
They won the auction. That's right. That's really how most craft distillers start. Some people, like some of our distillers, I mean, they're just loath to leave it. I mean, because they think it creates a whole bunch of different congeners and different size, heavier molecules as the pot gets heavier or gets hotter, and that's true.
Yeah.
So that's why pot still products taste a lot different. I mean, than column still, coffee still products. But we currently use 2. We use one as a stripping still, and then we run the spirit still at the same time.
Okay.
And really proof it up and clean it up. So now, it's much more. It's a much more consistent product.
Gotcha. Now you guys distill in cycles too. Is that partly because you have the pot still? It's just easier to run and do that.
It's sort of the only way. Yeah, I mean, you basically, instead of continuous distilling, you're batch distilling.
Yeah.
So it really is like each shift, like it sort of aligns with those batches, which is a run on either the stripping or the spirit still.
Now, do you guys focus on a particular you've got the same mash bill, but you have how many different mash bills do you guys have? 3?
3 different mash bills.
Okay.
So yeah, they're all 75, 21, 4.
Okay.
So for, the blue corn, we obviously changed that 75% yellow or blue, and then the 21's either rye or wheat, and the 4% malted barley always.
Okay. Now, do you guys actually run like for an entire month or 2 months or 6 months, just one specific?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. So that's your cycle. That's how you guys cycle your distilling. So you may have a product that you run for 6 months, and then it's like, we're just going to switch over and run this one. So it's not like every other day you're switching back and forth between.
Is that for bottled and bond purposes? Like, are you running on a June or January to June schedule for that, or
not explicitly? It's really just more so that when we do have the barrels ready for harvest, we have product that are similar ages across all the mash bills. And actually, blue corn, I think we mentioned, we have had sourcing issues. So we're about to undertake a lot of blue corn distilling here because we just harvested in the fall, and we'll be able to sort of get a lot of barrels put away.
Great. That'd be great. Now, we talked earlier about you mentioned, Sam, about the bottles. I don't remember if that was on the air or not, but you talked about the bottle. These were kind of the older labels, but you guys just kind of went through a rebranding. Was that this past year that you guys rolled that out?
End of COVID.
Okay, so what was
end of the first round of COVID?
The first round, yeah, round 1.5, yeah. So what was the thought process behind? Because you've been out since 2013. You started in 2013, right?
Yeah, and I think we put something out in November of 15.
15. So so you guys have been putting stuff out now for, this will be your 7th year, right, of releasing products right at that. So you've had this working logo and label and branding. So what drove the decision to kind of rebrand and I mean, you kept the same name, but you just kind of changed your logo and everything, which is a cool hat, by the way. There,
thank you.
I'm digging that hat. Yeah,
we've got one for each of you.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So what was the idea, or what was the thought process behind that?
We had a particular person who I'm not going to name, but she is our director of marketing, who, once she developed some more alliances on this particular issue,
there was no going back.
She moved it down the road, and I think that we also had some input for some retailers that said, your bottle's just not popping.
Yeah. Okay.
Just let's do something different, and so we did something with more color and hired this person, and it was a major process.
Sure.
I mean, they had, they would do slides and we'd meet and talk about. And so the news label has all these kind of like different kind of symbols on it that shows this is the grain, and there are other kind of, there's kind of like a lingo to it, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I was listening to you're on another podcast, The Bourbon Road, friends of ours, and you said something about somebody said it reminded them of a crossing guard. With the strap. But I mean, if you're in Kentucky, people know that it's a jockey and jockey silks. You just know that that's what it implies. But I guess people outside of the state of Kentucky, if they're not really that familiar with horse racing,
that was one of the
I forgot about the crossing
one
guard.
of the drivers of saying, hey, we need to clarify this.
Why
a
would
little.
you follow a crossing guard that has bourbon in it? Come this way.
Well,
trust me.
When I was in 4th grade, I was on safety patrol, and I did have, I had it crossed like that and wrapped around the waist. It sort of resembled that old logo, but the new logo is really cool. Obviously, you got the hat on there. I've seen the bottles, so that's really cool. But you guys, that's not the only change that you guys have really gone through. You got some really big, exciting things that are going on. Well, I guess we could talk about the new product first that you guys have recently put out. So you guys want to share a little bit about that, what you've done?
Yeah, Ben
Whoever
really
wants
took
to
the
jump
lead.
in.
Sure. Yeah. So, we were talking about necessity to scale and the difficulty if you have not planned 4 years prior to accommodate a certain demand. So, to help supplement our core products, which are all our own juice or our own distillate, we and in alignment with us, buying a property in Midway with plans to move the distillery to Midway, we learned a ton about Midway, Kentucky's distilling history, and it's incredibly rich. Actually, one of our tour guides and also his resident historian, Steve Morgan, sort of educated us on the history of Midway and all the distilleries that existed there that no longer do. One of them was Midway Distilling Company, and they basically existed right before Prohibition. During Prohibition, they sold medicinal liquor, and then in 1924, right after Prohibition, they burned down to the ground. And so, anyway, with all this historical context, and we wanted to come up with a sourced product line, we basically came up with Midway Distilling Company.
Okay.
And our initial release is essentially 5 rye whiskeys finished in secondary barrels. And yeah, we've just put it out in November of last year, and we just bottled the 5th secondary finished product, which is the vermouth finished, last week. So we're sort of getting that whole line off the ground. It's in distribution in Kentucky, and we're starting to get it in stores and retailers. So.
Yeah, and I've not had any of it, but Chad, I know you have, right? So
yeah, I've had
I've had like all of it.
So I've had all of them but the vermouth, but like the reclaimed recharred and the French oak, for those of you who are afraid of like, rum finished or wine finishes. Those are really good ones to go to. Like me and Ben were talking about, the French oak has some nice tannins to it, some spiced vanilla. But I've gone through all of them. I'm trying to savor them because I was going to bring them over tonight, and I was like, I don't want to impose and bring something.
How dare you bring alcohol to my house, Chad?
Well, I didn't want to be like, I want to bring stuff to Mark's house because like we joked about earlier.
That can be the next episode. We'll do a Midway.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that'll work, man, for sure.
Because I'm trying to find that right finished whiskey for you to like.
Gotcha.
And I've always done that. So I think you would enjoy them. I think you would like the rum finish a lot.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll definitely need to check those out for sure, guys. But that's got to be exciting. I mean, to have, and that's something you guys, when you started out, you decided you're not sourcing at all. I mean, you were doing your own stuff, which takes. I mean, that takes a lot to do that, because a lot of distilleries, when they start, it's like we got to make the cash, or we're going to make vodka, and we're going to make gin, and we're going to source all these products, just to get some cash flow. But choosing not to do that, I mean, that speaks volumes for how you guys wanted your product to end up, which is really cool.
I don't know that it was the right decision. It was the decision, and we stuck hard to it. Now this Midway product, it's an example, I think, of when you let smart people go, they figure something out. So it's a really good example of collaboration. So Maggie Young and Selena basically came up with sort of the stories of each bottle has this different story about Midway, a little piece of Midway. And then we talked to the people that we lease barrels from about barrels, and they said, okay, try the Sauternes, try the vermouth, try the French oak. These will give you what you want. And then just within that team, and then they even reached out to Midway, the Historical Society, and they came up with the train idea. And they said, oh, it's a train town. It's the first train town. And so Midway, the town had a part in it. Our people had a part in it. Our vendors had a part in it. Even where we source the rye whiskey from, they like it. So, I mean, it's just like this conversation about, what do you like? Where are we going to go? What's not been done? Yeah. What can we do and make a good product and a good presentation and something that's going to have legs? So you don't want to just try something that's going to like disappear in a year.
Right.
Like with a funky label and, be on a shelf.
Right.
People like forget about it, right? The SKU problem. You don't want to just have SKU growth for the sake of it. So, So, they really thought through this in terms of like, what's the final package going to look like? And it is great.
So these products, are they going to be like a yearly release, or what's the intention? What's the plan? Or, I mean, different, kind of the same concept, but just different barrel finishes. Is that the plan, or what do you?
We'll probably stick with this 5.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. All right.
Yeah. We started with these 5. I mean, it will be available year round. It's not a seasonal.
Okay.
So,
all right.
And we'll see, which ones get legs. I mean, I do think the 5, which are, as we mentioned, Sauternes, rum, vermouth, French oak, and reclaimed and recharred, they span the gamut of like, you got some wine finishes, you got some sweeter finishes, and then you also have these like sort of double oak equivalents or a toasted type equivalent. So you sort of have a range of product that appeal to different palates. out of the tasting room, that's sort of our only data set right now. But we've seen a lot of people come in that aren't diehard bourbon or whiskey fanatics, and the rum finish, the Sauternes finish, because they're sweeter, they're more well-rounded, and it is a rye whiskey, but those sweet finishes round it out so nicely that at 110 proof, which is what we bottle it at, they're still enjoying it. So, But yeah, to your question, we will experiment if we see that, hey, there's something missing here in these finishes. We may try some others.
That makes sense. So, guys, let's jump back and talk a little bit about what we were drinking. So we need to get back to the palate and the finish on that one, the 118 proofer. So, Matt, what do you get in terms of the palate and the finish on this one?
I think at the barrel proof on this, the 118, what this has that the 90 proof didn't have the batch is I'm getting a lot more red fruit. Getting cherry, I'm getting strawberry, a little raspberry, but there's bright and there's bold red fruit coming across with it as well. There's still that fresh baked bread that I'm picking up, the wheat, the honey sweet wheat, almost like a cracked oat or like a type of like seeded grain on it as well. Just like a really nice earthen type wheat with it. But I really like the addition of the fruit that I think I'm picking up from the barrel. It's coming through at that proof, not being taken down to 90 or a lower proof. It really brings out that rich, bright, bold red fruit as well that I'm picking up.
Nice. Chad, what about you, man?
I agree with Matt on the on the red fruit. Get a lot of brown sugar, like sweet brown sugar and bread. I mean, sometimes I'll describe things as like food just because I'll sip something or smell something. And I just think of like French toast with strawberries and syrup. Like that
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's delicious.
Yeah. Sam, what about you, man?
Yeah. I kind of get a caramelized sugar taste. And for a high proof product, I think it's really consistent. I don't get a lot of alcohol,
right?
Which I really like. When I'm tasting bourbon, I'm more like, especially when it's ours, I'm really more looking for a flaw. Like, what have we done wrong? Where did we miss it?
Right. And where's the off note? Yeah.
And blue corn is just it has a better moat, so to speak, in that it matures into a good product quicker, and I think it's really smooth. It doesn't have like a really bite at the end. And for 118, it is strong. I mean, no,
sure, right.
It's no joke.
Yeah.
So,
and this one, I think it's the same. It's aged at least 2 years, I believe. It's the same as the other one. Yeah, right there on the back of the label. So yeah. So this. But
I like the mouthfeel. It's a smooth current, and I do pick up the caramelized sugar, which I really like.
Yep. Definitely. Ben, what about you, man?
Yeah, no. To Matt's point, I always get cherry on this, and the toffee that I mentioned on the 90 proof, I get that again, maybe because I just love that flavor and I fixate on it. But
I get it, man. I get it, but I agree with that. I still pick up some of that cinnamon again. That I was on the earlier one. More sweetness, more like a brown sugary sweetness to me as well. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a unique flavor in terms of the cinnamon combining with that sugary flavor as well. So really, really like that. And the mouthfeel on this one, really enjoy that one. It's different than the 90 proofer, just kind of a creamier mouthfeel to me. So I don't know if you guys picked that up or not, but definitely enjoy that. So we talked about the new expressions that are coming out. But you got some other big news as well. So it's not just, and we kind of hinted around that a little bit, it's not just new expressions called Midway Distilling, but there's going to be a move to Midway as well. So you guys want to share that with our listeners, talk a little bit about what's going on there and how that came about?
Sure. We bought a piece of land in Midway, and about 4 years ago, Midway developed this little group to try to attract a distillery. And they sent 3 people up. I was working on a Saturday. Actually, we were doing, the fill your own bottle out of the barrel thing. And one of these people said, "Hey, man, can you come over here?" And that was Steve Morgan, actually, who works for us now. And Steve's the main recruiter. He lives right downtown. And he said, he's kind of got this gravelly voice. He said, "When you want to come down to Midway?" And I was like, "No, man, I grew up in Woodford County. I'm not going back there. not that I don't love it down there, but I was like, I live in town now. I've got a different life. I started out practicing law down there, and but we said, okay, let's go check it out. So we went and checked it out. So they said, okay, here, you have any properties? You'd be good. It gave us a list of like 4 or 5. None of them, people were like, "No, I'm not selling my." Who told you that?
Put a distillery in my backyard? No, thank you. Yeah.
You hear that shotgun?
Or it was like, it's this number, and you were talking about your house when they gave you that number and you liked it. It's the number that you flip back over and you just push it back to them. And so I like to call it the Nantucket of Kentucky, And so, but after years, we chased this. Then I started sending letters to people and saying, "Will you sell your land?" And sell your land. And this one guy called me back and he said, "I'll do it. I'll sell it." I said, "Where is it?" And he told me. I said, "Oh yeah, I remember that letter." And he said,
"Who are you?"
Yeah. And so Leslie Mitchell, that's who it was.
Okay.
He's just a really good friend of mine now, and really bright guy. He's done all kinds of things in his life. And so then he said, "Well, my brothers and sisters' farm is for sale. Why don't you talk to them? It's right next to me." So that began this like 3-year saga of trying to come to a deal with them. And right in the beginning of COVID, it went back on the market. We weren't able to reach a deal before. And they had a new agent who I knew. And I called him up and I said, it was a 300-acre farm.
Yeah.
And I said, "Look, man, I got to play hardball with you here because we're only interested in the industrial part." And the friend, he goes, "Good, because that's how we have it listed." I said, okay.
You drive a hard bargain, Sam. Damn, you're good at
Well played. Well played.
Man.
Fell right into my lap. So,
Nice.
so we got the thing written, and it really took us about a year to close because we had to jump through some hoops in Woodford County, and there was a part of it zoned ag. And then after that, it took us another year to get through the Department of Historic Preservation in Frankfurt because it has a house that was on the National Historic Registry, and we're getting what's called a block grant from the city of Midway, which is not a grant. They get a grant from the state, and then they buy the equipment, and then they lease it to us. It's still awesome, and then the money goes to Midway, and they keep it. It's good for everybody. So in order to do that, if you have a property that's on the National Historic Registry, you have to go through this program. So we got all that done.
As of last week.
Week.
Yeah. So this is hot off the presses.
Awesome, man.
It was
breaking news live from the Bourbon Life.
breaking news. Yeah. And so the newspaper guy in Midway, every time we'd see him, he'd say, "Just let me know when you're going to sign that document." I'll let you know. But so it's a major expansion for us. So
sure.
We'll be going from what we are doing now, which is about, a really good year would be about 200 barrels a year, to 75, the capacity to do 75 barrels a day.
Wow.
So a column still, and it's a lot of machinery and different trajectory too. So we'll contract to still, and we hope to contract to still for a lot of smaller distilleries that just want to kind of get moving.
Right.
Plus some investor groups, and but we'll restore that old mansion, which was built. It took them 3 years, 1832 to 1835.
Wow.
They burned all the brick there on the farm.
It's a gorgeous home.
Elkwood Mansion?
Elkwood.
The Elkwood.
Okay, yeah.
And,
Same architect as the original Frankfurt Capitol.
Okay.
Gideon Chirac.
Okay.
So
Very cool.
it's got a spiral staircase. I mean,
Wow.
it really has. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a great place. It sounds like the perfect place to have a historic bourbon distillery. I mean,
I'll be upgraded to an 800 square foot bathroom.
Exactly. Yeah.
Chad's moving in,
That's
guys.
right. Yeah,
Congratulations.
of course. Bunk beds maybe even in that one.
Hell yeah.
They have those old, what do they call them, like the salt houses or whatever down there by the stream. Those little rock buildings. You can just live in there by the cold.
I'm good with that.
But yeah, joking aside, like we will have space. So like all of our barrels can be on site.
Okay.
Our bottling line can be its own facility, not something we move to when we bottle. It's like, so it's going to be a game changer from just like each space will have a specialized function as opposed to, hey, it's bottling day. Let's move out the barrels and let's set up a bottling line.
Get the wheelbarrows out and the forklifts and let's move some things. So Sam, you'd mentioned, you kind of said something, you said industrial and then you said agricultural, but So you guys are going to grow on the.
We are, yeah.
You're going to grow corn, right? Okay, cool. So you're going to grow your own blue corn. Is that the plan?
Yep. You have to rotate the crops. So soybeans, blue corn, maybe winter wheat, and so as we build out with barrel houses, in between them and where we're not using barrel warehouses, we'll continue to grow corn.
Now, would that give you enough room to actually grow what you would need, or is your need
probably?
Well, okay.
We need about 35 acres.
Okay.
40 acres.
For the blue corn.
For the blue corn.
line.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So you could actually grow your own.
Yeah.
And you could meet your needs based off your own facilities out there. Now you're going to have other things out there too, right? So you're restoring the mansion, but you're going to have there's other buildings that you guys are rehabbing and refurbing to do some other fun stuff. It sounds like from what I've read. Can you talk about that? What you got going on?
Yeah. So, back to the, growing corn on site. I think that will be, as part of our tours, will be a unique experience. We'll start the tour right at the crop. Yeah. Right where the corn grows, which, if you've been to Napa Valley or Sonoma, that is the thing. They talk about, hey, this is why we do it here, So that'll be a really cool thing. And for people that come in from out of town, because we get a lot of visitors from New York, Chicago, they're city slickers.
They've never been on
for them,
never been to a farm.
Yeah, right? When you say malted barley, they say, what's that? Yeah. And so we, to be able to show them the grain, where it comes from, that process, that will be a really cool part of our tour experience.
And then you're going to abandon them and put a maze and make them figure their way out.
Yes,
through the
with a bottle of bourbon. Say, good luck, buddy.
We'll see you back at the house.
Yeah, but no, the property will allow, to your question, many other. We'll have food. We'll have places where people can sit around and hang out and have lunch, that kind of stuff, and events like concerts, movies.
Right.
For locals as well, because one piece for our current location, most of our traffic is all Bourbon Trail individuals, few locals. So we do look forward to Midway to basically become, a destination for locals to have events in terms of maybe farmers markets, movies, concerts, that kind of stuff, just to deepen those, ties within the local community.
Yeah. And you guys, that's pretty close to the interstate, isn't it?
It's right on it.
That's what I thought.
It's right on
so you're right there. So it's going to be easy peasy to get to. Mm-hmm. And Midway's a cool little town anyway. I mean, it's a really neat little place to go visit if people haven't been there. So that'll be really cool. It's not that far from Lexington. It's really not that far from Louisville. A little bit further, but not too bad, man. So that's going to give you guys, I think, a really good leg up, man, to get some people coming and visiting and do some fun stuff out there.
We hope so.
Yeah. So what's the plans in terms of opening and getting things moving out there?
So we'll probably, now that we're done with the historic preservation piece and we can move on with the loans and everything, we'll probably try to resubmit the financing, buy equipment, in the next 45 to 60 days.
Okay.
So buildings are 4 months out. So buildings will probably be up by, wintertime. And then the still is really, they're basically 12 months out. So I think probably first quarter of next year, we'll have something going. And in the interim, though, we're thinking about buying some more pot stills.
Okay.
Just to put them out there and run them.
Yeah. That's what I was going to ask. So are you going to leave the still downtown where you are now? Or will you guys be out of there completely then?
We'll be out in January.
Okay.
West 6 wants the space back, I think. No, they have been awesome, but I think they're like, they're expanding beyond what they can do. So, I mean, they need the space. Mm-hmm. It would be nice to keep a downtown location.
Yeah.
It's been good.
And that's a cool location too. I mean, if you're not from Lexington, if you come in to visit, I mean, it's an area of town that has seen a substantial amount of growth and reinvention of itself. Mm-hmm. I mean, really, because it was an area of town that wasn't desirable, for many years. It wasn't a place people just wanted to go visit. But now it's a really cool place to go. And West 6, I mean, they have Smithtown, right? And then they've got, you can go down there. They have the running club that operates out of West 6, and then they have the yoga people that, you do that, and you guys back there. So it's a really cool place. It's a really cool location. So and you guys will be down there until you can head out to Midway then.
Yeah, till January.
Probably. Yeah.
Or before, we probably, I don't know. We'll just see how it goes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think we will move the pot stills out there, obviously. And as Sam mentioned earlier, some of our distillers are diehard pot still purists. I think we will have a line that is always a pot still line because it is such a different flavor profile.
Gotcha.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. More breaking news live on the Bourbon Life Podcast.
We haven't discussed that, but yeah, possibly.
Congratulations, Sam. Guess what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's, like I said, there's always someone trying to develop some sort of movement, and then they get alliances.
That's right. It's a land grab in the distillery.
I feel like running a distillery is kind of like a Survivor show, right?
This season of Survivor.
Alliances and
Sputnik lives on.
Lots of parallels. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, guys, we're at the end, man, which is, we could probably do this for another hour or more. We probably need to do another episode and come back and revisit the Midway lineup. I think that would be a lot of fun to do that and run through those with you guys as well. But before we wrap it up, anything else you want to add? We've talked about the new products, the new distillery. Anything else though that you guys want to throw out there, or anything that you'd like to share with our listeners?
We appreciate you all having us. It's really cool.
Well, hey man,
and the fact that we went to law school together is awesome.
Yeah, man.
And we do have a Toasted Oak bourbon that's out now. It's
okay.
A secondary finish. And
nice.
People seem to. Have you had the Toasted Oak?
Love it.
I was going to say, Chad, what's your...
People really love Toasted Oak, or they just are like, eh.
Yeah.
But
yeah, we took it down. First time we ever had it was at the Bardstown Bourbon Festival, and the toasted aficionados, like, they literally are running around to every booth, like, do you have toasted? Do you have toasted? And we're like, we got toasted. And then it was just the lined up. So... But yeah, it did turn out really nice, and I think it's going to be we're going to be pushing a lot this year, so
awesome.
You'll see it.
We used used barrels for those, for the retoasting, by the way, and we got that through the TTB, and we did it both ways, with new barrels as the secondary toast.
Oh, okay.
And with used barrels as a secondary toast, because you got to put in new barrels for it to be bourbon. But
right.
We like the flavor profile a little bit better in the used ones, when they scrape them and retoast them.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we kind of did it initially as sort of a conservation thing, Maybe you get a little oak tree with it.
Right.
But but it's really a flavor profile thing too.
Huh. That's really cool. That's good to know. I hadn't thought about that, because I just always envisioned that you're going to use a barrel that's, a new barrel as well to do your secondary toasting in, but but from a TTB perspective, I mean, obviously it's a finished barrel, so I guess to them, does it really make a difference? If it doesn't make a difference if it's used or new or whatever, because it's a finishing barrel, right?
Yeah. It wouldn't, like, its pedigree comes from the first barrel. So it's straight or whatever.
Right. So Sam,
we beat the Coopers once.
Are you doing all your own legal work for the?
Yeah. Well, no, not really. I try not to do any of it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Honest.
Yeah.
I try to just, work with the people.
But there is a lot of compliance stuff that Sam is our expert on, and keeps us on the straight and narrow. Which
that's the only reason
very helpful.
I've never started a distillery, because everybody would expect me to do all that shit. I'm like, nope, I'm out. Nope, I'm a real estate attorney, man. I don't do that stuff.
I just drink it. Yeah,
just drink it and enjoy it.
Maybe on the next one we can talk about that idea we were talking about before, though.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is a bourbon / real estate background.
Yeah. We could do that. I'm sorry. Yeah, because it's like, we were having a good conversation. I was like, I couldn't really fit that one in, but that's a good topic. Yeah. We'll save that one for next time, because that'll be really good. So, guys, Chad, man, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It's been fun.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you're here. Anything you want to add before we wrap it up?
Nope. I appreciate you for inviting me, Sam, Ben. Love talking to you guys as always. I've not hung out with you since the release of the Maple last year.
That's right. Yeah, we did a live stream of that. We got to get back on that. We can do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
that was fun.
If he could keep Chad from working, man, he's the hardest working guy in retail, man. He's like never a dull moment, never a free moment anymore. Matt, what about you, man? Before we wrap it up and send it home,
I just can't say how glad I am to have people live around the table again.
Yeah,
it's just been really great. So, Sam, Ben, thank you both for coming out, for spending the night with us, and
you're not spending the night, just so you know. Thanks for spending a few hours for us, guys.
If we have one more, we might get there.
I got a couch, I got a love seat, I got a recliner. Yeah, we're good. I'm sorry, Matt. I interrupted you. I apologize.
No problem. It's been really great. So thanks for coming out, guys, and letting our listeners know about what you're doing. And we're excited to see where this is going, and to do this again with you all.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Definitely, guys. And I'm glad I got to crack these bottles, because it was funny. Like I said, I bought them, and I knew, to me they were special because they were like the first batch, and then It's like, and that was the one I pulled, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to save these. So I'm glad I got to open them, especially with you guys. I mean, that's not too many people get to say that they opened a bottle of bourbon with the guys that made the bourbon, you know? So that is really cool experience to me. So I appreciate you guys coming over and hanging out with us as well. It was a lot of fun. Get to know you. Well, Sam, I know you, but it's good to reconnect with you, man. Spend some time with you. Ben, it's great to meet you as well, man. So I really enjoyed it. We do want to thank all of our listeners out there. We want to thank all our sponsors. Of course, we are the Bourbon Life Podcast presented by Tim Smith Spirits, but we do appreciate all of our sponsors. We appreciate all of our listeners as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. You can email us at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook. Please feel free to send us a message there. If you feel so inclined, please leave us a review of the podcast. We feel like we do a pretty decent job, so we'd like to hear from you guys. If you'd like to leave a kind word or two about us, we definitely would appreciate that. And with that said, I'm going to wrap it up. Send us home with our tagline, which is, may your glasses always be full, and may you keep on living the bourbon life.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. Our mission at the Bourbon Life is simple: to share our passion for all things bourbon with you every week. And we'd really love to hear your thoughts on how we're doing. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at The Bourbon Life. You can also contact us by email at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. And you can always find us on your favorite podcast platform. If you have a moment, we'd love it if you would rate us and give us a review. So until next week, we hope your glass is always full and that you keep on living the bourbon life.
Whether it's rye, sour mash Tennessee whiskey, or bourbon, Davidson Reserve has something delicious to offer any whiskey lover's palate. Pick up a bottle of one of our award-winning Davidson Reserve whiskeys from your local retailer today. Visit www.davidsonreserve.com for more information. And cheers to drinking local.